Welcome to Act 2, Scene 1, where imagery is critical to the plot. As in the storm scene in Act 1, Scene 1, Shakespeare begins by emphasizing and undercutting the capacity of the bare stage to create a convincing illusion throughout Act 2, Scene 1. As the men look around the island, they describe it with great imagistic richness, giving the audience an imaginary picture of the setting of the play. Even so, they disagree about what they see and even argue over what the island actually looks like. Adrian finds it to be of subtle, tender, and delicate temperance, where the air breathes upon us most sweetly. Gonzalo says that the grass is lush and lusty and green. Antonio and Sebastian, however, cynical to the last, refuse to let these descriptions rest in the audience's mind. They say that the air smells as twere perfumed by a fen, meaning a swamp, and that the ground indeed is tawny, or brown. The remarks of Antonio and Sebastian could be easily discounted as mere grumpiness were it not for the fact that Gonzalo and Adrian do seem at times to be stretching the truth. Thus, the bareness of the stage allows the beauty and other qualities of the island to be largely a matter of perspective. The island may be a paradise, but only if one chooses to see it that way. Shakespeare uses this ambiguous setting for several different purposes. First, the setting heightens the sense of wonder and mystery that surrounds the magical island. It also gives each audience member a great deal of freedom to imagine the island as he or she chooses. Most importantly, however, it enables the island to work as a reflection of character. We know a great deal about different characters simply from how they choose to see the island. Hence, the dark, sensitive Caliban can find it both a place of terror, as when he enters frightened and overworked in Act 2, Scene 2, and of great beauty, as in his "The isle is full of noises" speech. Therefore, both Gonzalo and Trinculo, colonially minded, are so easily able to imagine it as the site of their own utopian societies. Gonzalo's fantasy about the plantation he would like to build on the island is a remarkable poetic evocation of a utopian society in which no one would work, all people would be equal and live off of the land, and all women would be innocent and pure. This vision indicates something of Gonzalo's own innocence and purity. Shakespeare treats the old man's idea of the island as a kind of lovely dream in which the frustrations and obstructions of life, such as magistrates, wealth, and power, would be removed and all could live naturally and authentically. Though Gonzalo's idea is not presented as a practical possibility, hence the mockery he receives from Sebastian and Antonio, Gonzalo's dream contrasts to his credit with the power-obsessed ideas of most of the other characters, including Prospero. Gonzalo would do away with the very master-servant motive that lies at the heart of the Tempest. The mockery dished out by Antonio and Sebastian reveals, by contrast, something the nobleman's cynicism and lack of feeling. Where Gonzalo is simply grateful and optimistic about having survived the shipwreck, Antonio and Sebastian seem mainly to be annoyed by it, though not so annoyed that they stop their incessant jesting with each other. Gonzalo says that they are simply loud-mouthed jokers who, quotations, would lift the moon out of her sphere if she would continue in it 5 weeks without changing. By conspiring against the king, however, they reveal themselves as more sinister and greedier than Gonzalo recognizes, using their verbal wit to cover up their darker and more wicked impulses. However, their greediness for power is both foolish and clumsy. The absurdly aggressive behavior of Antonio and Sebastian makes Prospero's exercise of power in the previous and following scenes seem necessary. It also puts Alonso in a sympathetic position. He is a potential victim of the duo's treachery, a fact that helps the audience believe his conversation when he reconciles with Prospero at the end. Trinculo and Stefano are the last new characters to be introduced in the play. They act as comic foils to the main action and will, in later acts, become specific parodies of Antonio and Sebastian. At this point, their role is to present comically some of the more serious issues in the play concerning Prospero and Caliban. In Act 1, Scene 2, Prospero calls Caliban a slave, thou earth, filth, and hagseed. Stefano and Trinculo's epithet of choice in Act 2, Scene 2, and thereafter is monster. But while these two make quite clear that Caliban is seen as less than human by the Europeans on the island, they also treat him more humanely than Prospero does. Stefano and Trinculo, a butler and a jester respectively, remain at the low end of the social scale in the play, and have little difficulty finding friendship with the strange islander that they meet. Misery acquaints a man with strange bedfellows, says Trinculo, and then hastens to crawl beneath Caliban's garment to get out of the rain. The similarity, socially and perhaps physically as well, between Trinculo and Caliban is further emphasized when Stefano, drunk, initially mistakes the two for a single monster. This is some monster of the isle with 4 legs. The importance of this scene is the way in which it dramatizes the initial encounter between an almost completely isolated primitive culture and a foreign civilized one. The reader discovers during Caliban and Prospero's confrontation in Act 1, Scene 2, that Prospero initially made much of Caliban, and that he gave Caliban water with berries, and that Caliban showed him around the island. Prospero later imprisoned Caliban after he had taken all that he could from him. The reader can see these events in Act 2, Scene 2, with Trinculo and Stefano in the place of Prospero. Stefano calls Caliban a brave monster as they set off singing around the island. In addition, Stefano and Trinculo give Caliban wine, which Caliban finds to be a celestial liquor. Moreover, Caliban initially mistakes Stefano and Trinculo for Prospero's spirits, but alcohol convinces him that Stefano is a brave god and decides unconditionally to kneel to him. This scene shows the foreign civilized culture as decadent and manipulative. Stefano immediately plans to inherit the island, using Caliban to show him all its virtues. Stefano and Trinculo are a grotesque, parodic version of Prospero upon his arrival 12 years ago. Godlike in the eyes of the native, they slash and burn their way to power. By this point, Caliban has begun to resemble a parody of himself. Whereas he would gabble like a thing most brutish upon Prospero's arrival because he did not know language, he now is willfully inarticulate in his drunkenness. Immediately putting aside his fear that these men are spirits sent to do him harm, Caliban puts his trust in them for all the wrong reasons. What makes Caliban's behavior in this scene so tragic is that we might expect him, especially after his eloquent curses of Prospero in Act 1, Scene 2, to know better.